Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you. My name is Keith Westman. I'm the COO of Otus. And today we're going to do a quick webinar where I'm going to give you an overview of a new feature in Otus that we're really excited about, which is called historical analytics. It's been really a long road, a long work in progress for us to get to the point where we were able to release historical analytics for everyone, and we're there. So we're going to go through today why we have it, how it's used, and I'm going to tell you how you can start taking advantage of using it right away. So one thing you should know is that this webinar is being recorded. So everyone here will get a recorded version of this webinar, and then you can share this out with whoever you want to see it. Also, I can't hear you, so if you have any questions, you can use the Zoom tools to ask a question, and then if we have time, I'll answer it on this webinar, and if not, then I'll send you a response. And if you need to hang up early, any question that comes in, I'll send a response along with the recording of this webinar so that you have access to it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just get into it. So we really see historical analytics as the way to turn Otus into a conversation starter. Certain questions can't maybe be answered in Otus, but can certainly be discussed by what you see in Otus. So how have our IEP students performed compared to our other students over the past 3 years? This will be a way for you to have that information to start the discussion. Did our new math program increase student performance on our state assessment? This will give you the visual, the information to have that discussion. How do our student athletes compare to our fine arts students? This will again give you the information to have the discussion. So why is it so hard to have these discussions without Otus or without historical analytics? Well, you know the answer to that. It's because your school district could look like this. You have just tons of systems you use. And important information about your students is in every one of those systems, but there's no magic wand that exists, to my knowledge, that helps you bring all of this information together into one view, which is why you may be using Otus, to have that one place where you can get tasks done, but where you can also visualize all of that data. So before you access historical analytics for the first time, it's important for you to know that every single Otus administrative user can use historical analytics. There's no extra fee. This comes with Otus. So if you have Otus, you get this. We did not automatically turn it on for every one of our clients because we don't like to do anything to your system without you being aware of that. So when you go to access historical analytics for the first time, if you don't see it, use the chat tool in your Otus account to let us know that you want it turned on. If you're a building level principal or if you're a team leader who is an administrative user of Otus and you don't want to make that decision for your entire district, also let us know that, and we will reach out to our main administrator contact at your district to ask them if they're okay with us turning it on. Okay? So if you don't see it, use the chat tool to let us know you want to turn it on. If you don't want to make that decision for your entire district, let us know that, and we'll contact the right person with the request. All of that being said, let's actually go check it out. So I am now in Otus as an administrator. I'm going to go over to Analytics, and I'm going to go right to Reports. And you'll see now that you will have, if you don't already, or may have a new option called historical. There's 3 types of reports in Otus. Your report cards, query, which we released earlier in the year, which is a way for you to find groups of students who meet a certain criteria, and then now historical, where you're able to compare groups of students over time or to one another. Let me show you the end result of me building a historical report. So for me, my school district just launched an instructional coaching program. Some of our teachers are working with instructional coaches. Other teachers are not working with instructional coaches. And what I want to know is there any difference in student performance between the students who are in classes with instructional coaches and the students who are in classes where the teacher's not working with an instructional coach? So I built this already. Let me just click it and you can see what it looks like. So what I'm looking at is CAP assessment data. You may be saying this means nothing to us. It's just the state test they use in Kansas. But I'm looking at CAP state data where my blue line is students who are in classes with teachers who do not have an instructional coach. And the green line is showing students who are in classes where teachers do have an instructional coach. I can also look at my NWEA data and compare these 2 groups. I can look at my Renaissance learning data. Now those lines are really close to one another. Or really anything else. All of the data that you have uploaded into Otus as third-party data can currently be visualized in our historic analytics. Later this spring, you're going to get to see data from district-created benchmark assessments, standards, and standards. So now that we're looking at the data, what can I do? You see the chart that's just going to allow you to compare performance over time. You see the different attempts that have been made and then the score. Of course, you can toggle off which assessment you want to see and which you don't want to see. Currently, we're just looking at math. And as I scroll down, I can see the other types of, in this case, CAP data. If I click on one of the attempts, so if I click on this dot, it's going to show me a close-up of just that assessment attempt. So my 2019 CAP ELA. So let me click on that. So I'm going to see how my 2 different populations of students did. If I've created targets where I want my students to perform, I'm going to be able to see that. If I click on any of these actual bar charts, I'm going to see the students that make up that chart. So in this case, the 67 students who were in this particular group. Now from there, I can choose to include all of these students in a new type of group. Or I can say, here are 3 kids who I want to set aside and call them something like CAP assessment, ELA, the 4 students that mean something to me. I want to set these students aside because I'm going to compare them to a different group of kids. So let me recap. The end result that we're going to talk about building, the end result is I have a way to compare different groups of students and different types of data. And if I click anywhere on the chart, it's going to ultimately show me the list of students who meet that criteria. So let's talk about how we build these historical reports. So I'm going to choose historical. and it's going to bring me to the builder. And I'm just going to put something like Keith's sample historical report. The first thing you're going to do is define your cohorts. Who are the groups of students that you're going to want to compare? So cohort A is a very general name, so we're going to change that. But if we don't narrow down who we want to look at, just know that Otus is going to show you that you're looking at all of your kids for the 2019-2020 school year. There's 1,700 kids. Now, if I change that to a different school year, this number will decrease. So in your system, you'll see that it's just going to be all of your kids for that school year. But now we can use any of these filters to get more focused. So I can filter by site. So I want to compare students at Maple High School. So if that's all I want to do, then I would just go in here and I would rename this cohort to Maple High School. But let's say I want to get even more specific. I want my students at Maple High School, but I just want my male students. So we just add that filter. So now I'd probably want to change this to something like male. So that's my first cohort. We keep adding your cohorts until you get, all of the comparisons you're going to want to make. So of course we can do sites, we can do teachers, individual teachers, like Keith Westman is a teacher in our building. So I'm typing Westman and hitting enter, and it's going to show me the students it's going to look at all the students who are in Keith's classes, or you can do groups of teachers that you've created. So these are, my teachers who have been trained on PLCs. So teachers is going to be individual teachers or your teacher groups. We can look at classes. We can look at grade levels. We can look at ethnicity and race. We can look at gender. And then we can look at individual students or student groups. So I can look up a specific child, or I can say, show me my students who have experienced trauma. That's the students that I want to compare to my male students at Maple High School. So again, you just tell Otus, who are you going to look at? Who are those groups? The next thing you do is you tell Otus what data do you want to look at. So in this case, I'm going to look at CAP data. I'm going to look at Renaissance learning data. I'm going to look at, you name it, whatever data you have loaded into Otus, you're going to be able to visualize. Now, a special note to folks who are joining us that use SBAC as your state test or NWEA as your district benchmark assessment. In order to see those two assessments, you're going to use the chat tool and say, I'm not seeing NWEA or SBAC in my dropdown. Can you help me make it so that I can visualize that data? Why am I saying that that is special? It's special because SBAC and NWEA have all sorts of really awesome information that we are able to visualize in Otus. However, that isn't going to be released until this spring. So in the meantime, we are going to help you get your NWEA or SBAC data into Otus so that you can visualize it today. It's not going to be as robust as it ultimately will be, but you will still be able to visualize it. So if you have SBAC or NWEA, hit us up on chat so that we can make it so that you can see your NWEA data or your SBAC data as it sits in Otus now. But ultimately, it's going to be actually have a lot more things that you'll be able to dive into. But anyway, once you build the report of the data sets that you want to look at, you click Run Report, and you're going to start looking at your cohorts. Now, in some cases, you're going to start building these reports, and there's going to be something like, sorry, there isn't enough data for this cohort. Does that mean Otus is broken? No, it means Otus is honest. What it's telling you is, I don't have any data for this group of kids. That's not a problem. That's another opportunity for you to hit us up on the chat message and say, hey, I'm playing around historical. I tried to look at data for my whatever, and it's saying there is no data. Help me out. So what we're going to do is we're probably going to tell you that, oh, it's because you haven't added any data for those students in Otus. So let's get that done. So this may expose opportunities where you don't have data. Not the end of the world, totally normal. Let us know that, because it's going to now tell us, okay, so there's some more data that we can add to your Otus system. Let us have it. So let me recap really quickly. I log in as an administrator. I go to Analytics. I go to Reports. If I don't see a button that says Historical, I go to the chat tool and I say, hey, we want historical for our district. Or you're going to say, hey, I want historical, but I can't make that call. Can you reach out to the right person? Okay? If you do see historical, then you click on it, you build your cohorts, you add the data you want to look at, you hit Run Report, and you start exploring. So, and if you come across any report that's not showing data, then you let us know, like, hey, let's get some more data into Otus. Now, how do you create teacher groups or student groups? Now, that's a tool that's been around in Otus for a long time. If you want to create new teacher groups or new student groups based on what you've learned today, go Home, then just Teacher Groups, and you create a group. So here are our tuba players. I'm a big dude, 6'6". And usually I ask people if they see me guess what band instrument I play, but I played tuba. So, so let's say we want to have all the teachers who play tuba. We want to look at the data for their students. So I would name the group, and then I would go and I would add teachers to that group. So I'm going to say, here are all of the teachers that, are at Maple Elementary School. These are all my tuba playing teachers, so put them in that group. All right? So this, again, is not looking at the data on these teachers. It's looking at the data on the students who are in classes where teachers are tuba players. So some ideas for you. First-year teachers, veteran teachers, teachers who work with instructional coaches, teachers who don't, teachers who are high school teachers, teachers who are elementary teachers, teacher leads, you name it. Go for it. You can do the same thing with groups of students. So you're creating groups and you're adding kids to that group. Kids in Tier 1 intervention, kids who are highly mobile, kids who are in their first year in our district. Again, all of these different ways that you want to segment out your students. Now, in order to make Otus something that is fast and reliable, you'll notice that if you create a student group or a teacher group today, you're not going to be able to choose it in your drop-down when you build a historical report until tonight. So once every day, we sync all of the groups that are made with our historical report builder. So if you're creating those groups today, when you go over to build a historical report, those student and teacher groups will not be available until tonight. So just remember that. But they will be available tonight. So again, so I taught third grade. So if I'm repetitive in nature, I apologize. It's my nature. So from your home page, you're going to go to Analytics, then to Reports, and you're going to start playing around. Now, while I have your attention, let's talk about query. Query is super cool. Query is where you're essentially asking Otus, hey, tell me people who meet this criteria. So it's like, who are my, I don't know, I want to know like at-risk population. So it's, you know, what types of students do you want to look at? If you want to look at all of them, then don't add any filters. But for me, at-risk is students who, you know, performed a certain level on the CAP test. So we'll say, you know, on the 2019 CAP test, their student score was, you know, less than, you know, 400. And then we're going to tell you how many students meet that criteria. So you just keep going. You have and or options, and then you run your report, and then we're going to tell you everything about those kids. So you just said that you're looking for people who were below whatever on this test. Well, here's the buildings they go to. Here's the grade levels they're in. Here's their race, ethnicity. Here's their gender. Here are the student groups those kids are in. Here are the teacher groups those kids are in. Here are their classes. And then you can keep drilling in. Like, oh, okay, interesting. It seems like something is up with our, it seems like our largest population of at-risk kids based on my criteria is Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. So let me look closer at those kids. As you use these, as you look at the data, you can keep drilling in. And then ultimately you're going to see your list of students as well. I'm going to stop for questions in just a moment. One thing I failed to mention to you when you're building a report is this really cool exclude feature. So sometimes you're like, show me everyone in our district, but not the kids at Maple High School. There's this grayed out exclude button that allows you to exclude certain types of students from that group you're creating. I've talked long enough, so I'm going to stop. If this is enough for you and you're ready to go play, go play. If you have, and before you go play, thank you for joining. And I'm going to let you go. You don't have to stick around for questions. I'm not going to show anything else new. So if you have to go, start playing, or go do whatever you have to do. And thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions, and if you do want to stick around, you can stay on, and I'll go through those. So I'm going to get quiet for a second. I'm going to have questions come in, and I will answer those to the best of my ability. So if you have to split or feel you're good and you want to take off, thanks for being here. If you're going to hang on, just give me a moment. I'm going to get quiet. I'm going to read, and then I'll be back in a moment.